Hello, everybody, and welcome to Side Hustle Ideas. I am Bill, the company's expert. Hope everybody's doing great out there. And this is what is it? This is a podcast. It's got video on it, so I'm not sure if that technically makes it a podcast. Podcasts are traditionally audio, but I got video too, so I don't know what this is. It's a live stream. But this is a live stream where we're talking about entrepreneurship. We talk about taking your first steps into entrepreneurship. And this wonderful world. I think it's absolutely magical. And if you are here, if you're watching this is an interactive type thing. So if you see the chat box near my face, get in the chat and I'll be taking questions. I'll be doing a little bit of a monologue until I get questions, and then we're going to dive into it. Goot is here, says, hello, Goot. I'm sure I'm saying your name wrong. I say everybody's name wrong. Don't take it personally. I insist upon it. It keeps life interesting. No, I think entrepreneurship is amazing, and side hustles are the way into that world. Okay, what's not to like? It's a combination of creativity with a little bit of rebellious spirit. You mix that together, and then you create this thing that makes money. And if you do it right and you play your cards right, you can replace your day job, and you can take your employment history and your financial or your employment future and your financial future into your own hands. So it's an absolutely magical thing. And the name of this episode is What Problem Do You Solve? I have heard that I've heard it put around that people use that as a sort of summary of what you're doing. What problem do you solve? It's good and it's bad. It's good in the sense that, okay, it's like a sort of sanity check. You can sort of ask yourself, what am I doing? What's the point of this? And it should have a pretty simple and clear answer. But it's bad in the sense that as a measure of success, as a measure of if something's going to work, it's not really a great tool for that, in my opinion, because you can always justify what you're doing by answering that question in some abstract way. So it's not really great for that. Heimke is here, if I'm saying that right. Hello, Heimke. It's great to have you here. So we're going to be talking about entrepreneurship and side hustles. And what's the number one reason that people fail? Well, there's two types of side hustles. There's two types of businesses that people start up, really, when you think about it. And one is where the challenge is they can't do the selling part of the equation. That's the challenge. They have a thing, but the failure is in being able to sell it. The other major problem that people encounter is the opposite, where usually if they're more an extroverted type, they have the selling part down. Okay, that's not the issue. Their issue is the thing that they're going to sell. They have nothing to sell. They don't know how to create the thing. They don't know how to actually go about doing it. Or maybe they're out of ideas. Even if they have an idea, they're not really great at the doing the work part, but they're great at the selling part. And this reflects really the two major components of what you need for any kind of side hustle or small business or startup idea. You have operations and you have marketing. Those are the two pillars of what you need to do. You need to create a thing. Okay, that's best done by introverts, people that can focus. Technical people, detail-oriented people, they usually have that covered. You need to create a thing, and then you got to sell it. You got to make sure it fits somebody's needs, it meets their wants, wills, and needs, and then you have to connect with them, and you have to convince them to buy from you. And that's the selling part, or the marketing, whatever you want to call it. And that's usually best done by someone who is an extrovert, somebody who is great at connecting with people, communicating with people. So depending on what type of person you are, you may have a weakness in one of those two areas. And that's usually what I've seen. That's usually what we see. That's certainly what I've seen in my experience mentoring startup founders and working with small business owners. Alham Roshanger, if I'm saying that right, says, thank you, I got hired. Thank you for your videos, especially that video about tell me about yourself. Well, you're welcome. You're welcome. I'm glad that worked out. So yeah, these are the two kind of reasons, the two things you have to have in place, right? And something that I was thinking about the other day that I think is a little bit analogous to solving this problem with, how to do a side hustle or a business is asking somebody, what things would be required, for you to be, say, a successful actor? Okay, just bear with me a second. You would need education. You would need some kind of, usually it helps if you go to drama school, you learn how to act, right? You would need several things. They'd have to all be there for it to work. And I wrote this down here on a little note that I can barely read. That's what I do. I write notes down, and then I can't read them because my writing is god-awful. Every year that I just spend typing instead of writing, my handwriting just goes right down the tubes. But no, you would need several things, like a link in a chain. For example, you need education, you need experience, right? If you've never acted before, you tend to not be that great at it. You learn by doing it. You would have to be social, okay? You would have to be connected, with people that are, I don't know, hiring actors, putting on plays, part of that community, right? You would have to have a sense of what's appropriate when you talk to people and when you act. You would have to know how to present, right? Things like this, being able to go out and present something. Presentation skills, very important to be able to sell something. You would have to have charisma, work on your personal charisma. Sometimes it comes naturally. Sometimes it comes naturally, but it's something that we can improve by practicing and training. And having networking skills. All of these things together, and I'm sure many more, will help you. Now, if it's like a link in a chain. If any one of those things isn't there, it can undermine you and you have no success. So you need all of them for it to work. And entrepreneurship is a little like that too. You have to have created a thing, okay? You have to understand enough about your customers that you create a thing that they need. You have to have the ability to actually create it. That requires a good work ethic, organizational skills, technical skills in whatever area it is. And then you have to go out then after that and be able to connect to customers, be able to speak their language, understand their needs, be able to communicate to them effectively, be able to persuade them, right? And then know what's reasonable, know what makes sense for them, and be able to provide that service. You have to be reliable, you have to be organized, et cetera, et cetera. So as you can tell, it requires many, many different skills. And you pretty much have to have all of these. And if you don't have one, it's enough to sink the entire operation. So, it's a matter in life of building those up. And a lot of times when people, in my experience, usually your first entrepreneurial attempt is not a success. Some people's it is, but a lot of people it isn't. It's typical that it isn't. It's usually because you're developing or honing one of those skills in particular. And maybe you don't have all of them quite yet. But as we go, we strengthen all these different areas. And eventually, if you stick with it long enough, you have all the constituent skills and then you win. And it's amazing. So yeah, I see there's 18 people here. Thank you for joining me today. Get in the chat. And if you have any questions, I'd like to ask people, like, what are you struggling with? What are you wondering about? Usually when people are here or they're seeking, knowledge or advice, they're usually struggling with a certain challenge. They're trying to learn something. And I would like to know what that is so that I can speak to it. Without that, I'm just sort of jabbering into the void. So let me know what you're working on. Let me know what challenge you're trying to overcome. If you are just sort of getting ideas about things you could do, hence the name Side Hustle Ideas, let me know that too. And we can explore some of that stuff. What we were doing, I think it was last week, was several people were asking me, what do you think about this idea? And I thought that was great. I thought that was a great sort of format. Here's my fancy alternate camera. Yeah. So it does require a lot of constituent skills. And this is reflected in business where, if you learn business, right? Business is the science of doing this, by the way. Being able to do like a side hustle or to do a business, like if you want to start a small business or you want to start a more innovative startup company, like a tech startup. how to do that. Okay, how these different pieces are done. That's business. That's what business is. When you go to business school, that's what you study. So while we're waiting for the questions to roll in, if this is something that you're interested in learning, I created this right here. Here it is, right there. The $100 MBA course. So what you do, it's a self-study course where you learn business. And what you're doing is you're not learning some pseudo business program that I made up. You're learning actual business, the same material that's taught in universities at a master's level, Masters of Business Administration. And the difference is that instead of going to school and having to go to class and having some professor read you this material directly out of a textbook, in my course, you get the textbooks and then you read them yourself. So it's the same material. You walk away knowing the same things, only it's substantially cheaper, and you get to do it at your own pace, and you get to go only into the areas that you personally are interested in, if that's what you want. You can certainly read all the books and do it that way, but if you just want to do it, you're just interested in one particular area or something, you can do that too. So check that out. There's a link in the description if that sounds interesting to you. I actually created it primarily for would-be entrepreneurs in mind. That's why I created it. Okay, in the chat we have Heinke again says, can you precise presentations skills? What does that mean? What makes a good presentation in your opinion? Okay, I'll tell you exactly what makes a good presentation in my opinion. It's very, very simple. Don't be boring. It's just that simple. That's it. Don't be boring. I don't care how much information is conveyed. I don't care what type of information is conveyed. I don't care if you've persuaded them to do anything or not. But the one thing that I think I can pretty much agree on in every situation is that if you're going to present something, don't be boring. Make it interesting. Do something slightly unexpected. Get people's attention. Keep their attention. Okay? Then beyond that, practice makes perfect. Okay? I remember, just bear with me for a second, because you've asked a great question. I'd like to explore that for a minute if I can. I remember years ago, when I was younger, I was a teenager, I was in my 20s, and I would go out to see, rock bands and things in playing shows in various venues. Whether it was in your high school talent show, like putting on a little concert or something in the gymnasium, or you're going out to a club or a bar or something in your town, and you're seeing bands perform. People get up on stage, they play music, they sing, right? And the question is, it's a lot like presenting, okay? You're getting up and you're performing. Now, what would be a good performance? What would be something that would be, that would hold your interest versus something that's boring, that doesn't hold your interest, right? Well, number one, okay, maybe the type of music, if you happen to like the type of music, that's pretty important, right? But so that would be like the topic equivalent. But other than that, you got to hold people's interest. It doesn't matter if you're saying something super valuable, super important. Maybe you're giving them the meaning of life, something super useful, or the secret to wealth and success. If you're so boring that they tune out or they leave, what good do you do? None. Right? So, we can break it down. Now, I actually have a video on my YouTube channel that you can look up. I forget its title, but it's called, it talks about when I was a teacher in university, what I asked of my students when it came to how to present, because they would have to do presentations in front of the class. They would present projects and things like this. They would actually pitch entrepreneurial ideas and things like this as an exercise. And I did a video on here was my grading scheme and here's what I looked for. And there were several mechanical things on there, okay, you have to have a loud voice. If I'm at the back of the class and I'm listening and I can't hear what you're saying, that's a problem. Okay, you need to speak up so people can understand. If you stand in the same spot for your entire presentation, that's bad. You need to move a little. And what I did is I required my students to move from, if they're at the front of the room, they would have to move all the way to this side at least once, and then all the way to this side at least once, and then they'd have to come out into the crowd at least once, and then come back, right? It's more interesting. If you see somebody coming towards you, it sort of wakes you up, and you get a bit more engaged. Not in a stupid or hostile way, but just, you just sort of move towards somebody. People tend to not fall asleep or not tune out when that happens. There are all kinds of stuff. You have to maintain eye contact with people. If you're giving a presentation using like PowerPoints or something like that, or you're pitching a pitch deck or whatever, you have some kind of visual aid. You can't just rely on that to be the entire thing that people look at, because that's damn boring. They should focus on you. You use it as a tool, but you're still the main focus. Okay? If you can't sort of command the room so that people focus on you, you don't have that kind of presence. That's something you should develop, and you do it by practicing. Okay? And having a bit of confidence. Okay, I mean, I'm trying to remember from years ago. There was a whole bunch of things. Okay? Like the format had to be important too. The introduction. People need to understand in the introduction, in the first, 15 seconds, what the topic is, what you're talking about. I know that seems self-evident, but, you would not believe how many students and how many professionals I've been to, I've seen their presentation, and you don't know what their topic is, really. They haven't made it clear. It's either unclear, or it's convoluted, or it's confusing. Or they just get up and there is no introduction. They just launch into a story and you have no idea where it's going, or, what this is about. What are we talking about here? Something to do with this, something to do with that. I don't get it, right? So you can't have that. You have to have a very clear introduction where we're going to talk about this. Okay, I'm going to pitch you this, and people need to understand what it is. You have to have a body, and then you have to have a conclusion. The conclusion, in my opinion, should answer the question, so what? Why should I care about this? Someone does a presentation on some random thing. They talk about the rainforest. They talk about, caribou migration in North America. They talk about, certain economic indicators in the Californian energy industry. Whatever. The conclusion should be, so what? Why should I care about this? How does it relate to me? Why is this important to me? That's what the conclusion should clearly state, in my opinion. So it was things like this. These are sort of mechanical things, but at the end of the day, just don't be boring, okay? If people kind of tune out and start playing on their phone, during your presentation, that's bad, okay? So work on that. Make it so that they can't do it. They can't do that, or they don't want to do it. Hopefully that makes sense. But that's a great question. And by the way, the whole entrepreneurship thing, a lot of people, in my opinion, have kind of a little bit of a skewed opinion of, entrepreneurship and stuff. They think of the Silicon Valley model of entrepreneurship. They think okay, what's entrepreneurship? What am I doing? Okay, well, I'm coming up with an idea. I'm coming up with a prototype, and then I'm going to pitch it to investors. And then I'm going to pitch it to companies that would want to buy me out. And that's what they think, and that's what they focus on. It's that does work in certain little niches, right? But for most people, that's not really what you're going to be doing. You're not going to be pitching to investors. You're not going to be worried about investors, and you're not going to be worried about getting acquired. It's more going to be finding customers and becoming revenue positive, and then becoming profitable. Those are going to be the big challenges. Heinke is asking some more questions here, some good questions. What about the ways of improving your charisma you talked about earlier? Oh, I've done videos on that too. Okay, some of the stuff that you say in response to this, people dismiss because it's so simplistic and basic, but it's absolutely true, okay? For example, if you're talking about having charisma in like a one-to-one encounter, the number one thing you can do, it starts with being able to make eye contact with the other person. You know, I've interacted with a lot of people who are in their 20s, and a good proportion of them, you know, they have an issue with sort of being able to look you in the eyes when they talk to you. And the problem is that signals that they're not really engaged, they're not really interested, they're not really confident. You know, it signals a bunch of bad things, right? So just being able to have a conversation where you make eye contact with the person, like I'm trying to do with the camera now, you know, that's important. It's so basic, but it is, okay? And then the second thing is just being able to look pleasant and approachable, right? Like I have a bit of a smirk or a smile on my face. It's not really a beaming smile, but I'm trying to look pleasant and approachable. That's a huge thing. Like if you go on LinkedIn and you look at the profile photos of a lot of people that are on there, one of the things you'll notice is that, you know, if you look at a lot of people that are in higher positions, whether they're executives or board members or investors or whatever, you know, they tend to have good photos where you take a headshot and they're smiling and they're looking, you know, pleasant and happy, right? You know, and that's because that's somebody that you would probably want to approach and have a conversation with, right? And then conversely, you see a lot of people on LinkedIn, there may be, and I'm not picking on anybody in particular, but, you know, a lot of technical areas, you know, IT, you know, people like this. And you look at their pictures and they're like, you know, they look like really like uncomfortable and they look like really upset and angry sometimes. You know, and it's like your gut reaction to seeing that is kind of like, oh, you know, I don't want to talk to that person. They look like they're about to want to beat me up or something. So, you know, just looking pleasant and friendly is a thing too, right? And then you go into more sort of higher level stuff. Like, for example, if you have a conversation with somebody, don't start talking all about yourself, okay? Ask them about them. People love talking about themselves and their own opinions. They love saying their own opinions about things that they're excited about and they know a lot about. So if you want to make yourself sort of instantly likable to a stranger, if you can figure out what they would like to talk about and then get them to talk all about it, and then you look like you're listening and you're interested, like hopefully you are, but you look like it, you know, people really enjoy that. They will like you. You hardly say anything, but they will love talking to you, right? So, I mean, you know, you can go from there. There's a lot more, but it's things like this that'll get you started, right? Limaz is here. Hi, Bill. Hi, Limaz. Chandler says, not sure if this is the type of stream to ask this question, but I wanted to achieve an MBA. Should I have a solid business idea first? What do you mean by that? I don't think that really makes sense. You want to achieve an MBA. An MBA is a Master's of Business Administration. It's a master's degree in a university. Now you're saying you want to achieve it. Should you have a solid business idea first? You mean like an idea for a business? Like an entrepreneurial type venture? The two things are independent. Like, if I understand what you're asking, the two things are independent. You can go and get a Master's of Business Administration in a university. You know, you don't need any business entrepreneurial idea to do it. You just go to university and you pay your money and you enroll in the program and you pass all the courses and the tests and everything, and then you graduate. So that's that. Now, should you have a solid business idea? Not necessarily. It doesn't matter. Maybe if I'm misunderstanding what you're asking, Chandler, if you could elaborate, I'll be happy to respond. Heinke says, sorry for asking questions you have answered in your videos. No, not a problem. That's why I do these. That's why I do this. Hopefully I've given you a sort of basic answer. If you want to know more of the details, go check out that video that I have on my channel. And I can't remember the title, but it's something to do with presenting, or how to do a presentation, or what I asked of my students. So if you do a search for that on my channel, it should come up. Heinke says, I'll make sure to check everyone whenever I got some time. I just discovered your channel recently and found it interesting. Keep it up. Well, thank you. Yeah, this is kind of, usually what I end up talking about is like how to answer job interview questions and things. That's kind of the main thing, because that's where the demand is. I actually enjoy talking more about business. That's really like how to run a business, how to deal with people, how to set everything up, how to lead it to success. That's what I'm most interested in, because that's been my career. But there's less demand for that on YouTube than there is for like how to pass a job interview. So this is more towards like what I'd like to talk about. But I try and cater to what people are interested in. So that's why I feed off questions. Chandler, I can try to elaborate. Would it be more efficient to learn MBA proficiencies while applying them to your own startup? Oh, yes. Well, look, okay. The answer is yes. As evidence of that, that's why I created that course that I was harping on about at the beginning of the stream. Because if you are trying to start your own business or a startup or a side hustle, okay, you're in the world of business and you're trying to solve the problem of how to succeed in business, right? Now, the entire field of study at university of business, okay, where you would get something like a Bachelor of Business or a Bachelor of Commerce, and then you'd go on to get an MBA, a Master's of Business Administration. What does that train you in? That trains you in how to be successful in business, okay? Now, if you were to take a bachelor degree of business, that can teach you certain skills within business. It kind of trains you to be a bureaucrat, to be a clerk, to be someone who writes reports, someone who does research, essentially a grunt who works in a business, right? That's the bachelor level. But if you go on to the master's level, that's where it teaches you how to make decisions that lead to success in business. So if you're trying to crack the problem, solve the problem of how to be successful in business, the official training in a university that teaches you precisely that is a Master's of Business Administration. If you go through that program and you get that credential, that basically says you are fully equipped to be a general manager. That's somebody who deals with the profit side and the cost side, and you know how to run a business. Okay, that's what it trains you for. So a lot of the theory behind what should you do when you're starting your own business, that's covered in a Master's of Business Administration. That's the de facto training for how to do it. And I know there's a lot of people out there that say like, oh, you don't need a degree or whatever. Yeah, okay. I mean, you can have tremendous luck and tremendous natural talent, and you're just at the right place at the right time and everything works out and you're successful. But I wouldn't bet on that. You know what I'm saying? Learning how to do your craft really helps. It's like saying, do you have to go to drama school if you want to be a famous Hollywood actor? Right? If you want to be the next Johnny Depp or whatever, and that's what you want to do you have to go to drama school? Now, the conventional wisdom is yes, you should. You should learn your craft. That'll teach you how to act. That'll allow you to really become the best actor you can. And that certainly helps. if you're trying to succeed in acting, right? Are there cases of people who have become A-list Hollywood actors who have never been to drama school? Yes, there's a few of those, but they're rare. Typically, if you want to be an actor, you go to drama school. Drama school helps if you want to be an actor, right? Same thing here. If you want to be in business, learning business really helps. Is it the be-all, end-all? Does it guarantee you success? No. But it teaches you what you're trying to do here, which is succeed in business. Okay? It goes beyond teaching people like the terminology and the lingo, It teaches you how to make decisions. Should you do this or should you do that? And that's what starting a business or a side hustle really is. Okay, how should I start? What's the first thing to do? Should I create the thing first, or should I go out trying to connect with customers? How do I find my customers? Should I go on social networking? Should I start talking to people on the street? Should I send out letters? Should I send out emails? Should I go to events? These are all decisions. You're faced with a series of decisions. And what a master's of business administration will tell you in theory is, it tells you how to make those decisions. Okay, it gives you the theory and it says, this is the way you do it. This is what you need to achieve. And this is usually how you achieve it. So it fully informs you. Okay, it really frames what you're doing. So hopefully that makes sense, Chandler. It will help you. Like, you can learn everything the hard way, but it takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of persistence. And some people never get there. You give up before you get there. Usually when you start with the theory, that saves you from learning a bunch of lessons the hard way, because other people have done that for you and they've figured out the theory and they teach you the theory. And as long as you go by that, you will do good. When you go against the principles, that the theory says, that's usually leads to disaster. So knowing what the principles are really help. Alex says, what is the best advice for introverts when it comes to developing soft skills or communication? Well, the simplest advice, the best advice is practice. Practice makes perfect. But I think you're probably wanting to go deeper than that, knowing what specifically to do. Now, what I would suggest, okay, if you're an introvert, you'd want to develop your soft skills. Okay, there's kind of two things you have to do. There's two parts to this. The first is get the theory. So, I don't know, read a bunch of internet articles on how to have a conversation or how to do an interview, something like that. Just get some basic theory down. And then go out and interact with people. If you have a job, like a day job where you're physically around coworkers and things, you can practice having conversations, different types of conversations. It starts with something probably easy to do if you are in the situation, is just going and having a lunch conversation with somebody. So if you work at, a job and you have a lunch break and there are other employees around, coworkers of yours around, go and have your meal, your lunch with them and have a conversation. If they all are in a group, if you could be part of that group, that's great. If not, if they're just one other person, maybe a friend of yours or someone that you would like to have a conversation with, just ask them, you want to go for lunch together? And just practice having a conversation. Doing the things I mentioned like 5 minutes ago, making eye contact, asking them about them. Like, for example, you could ask them about work. Obviously, that's something that you share, but you would want to ask somebody about a topic that they enjoy talking about. Now, if people have hobbies, okay, great things to ask them about the hobbies. Say they like, I don't know, racing bikes or something. I don't know. You could ask them about that and say, like, I understand you race bikes. Like what made you get into that? Or this sort of thing. And then you see what they say, and then you ask them a bunch of questions. don't people get hurt, or where do you race bikes, or is it kind of like the movies where they show all the people in the BMX things going through mud? Is that kind of what we're talking about? Just ask and let them talk to you, and they will love talking about it. They obviously know a lot about it. They enjoy it very much. So speaking about it and speaking about their opinions on it, they will enjoy it and they will like you. Okay. And then just practice like looking approachable and, things like this, looking friendly. And start with that. That's probably the easiest sort of way in. And you're going to develop, having a rapport with somebody, because the ability to go and initiate contact with somebody and have them like you is a very important skill. That's the foundation of a lot of things that come later in sort of the business world. Like if you are making networking connections, or you're wanting to get information from somebody, or you're wanting to persuade them, to buy your product or be open to something, some option. Like all of that is based on this foundation. Or you're wanting to present or do public speaking, things like that. It's just an upscaled version of some of the basic skills that we're talking about on a one-to-one, exchange. So that's probably the easiest way in to develop it, your soft skills and your communication skills. Chandler says, okay, that makes sense. Thank you. Well, good. Yeah, these are very important. And the more you do of these sort of encounters, and the more they go well, the more confidence you will have that you can do this, right? And then you will feel confident in your abilities to be able to do this going forward, right? Practice makes perfect. And it's about learning the theory, learning some of the ideas, and then go out and applying them. Not only does that show you that they work, but it sort of cements it as a way of learning. Like you can read something, but you're probably going to forget it. Once you actually go out and apply it, the chances of you forgetting it go down dramatically. So that's what I would say. Now there are other things too. If you're okay sort of one-on-one, but your public speaking skills are not great and you have a fear of public speaking, and that's what you want to develop. You want to be able to get up in front of a group of people and start telling them stuff or interacting with them. That's a necessary skill if you're going to be a supervisor, a manager, you're managing people. That can be a bit nerve-wracking for introverts. I had to do that when I was in my early 20s. When I started my career, I was younger than 25, whatever age I was. And you had to get up in front of a room full of people, and they were like, a lot of them were twice my age. And you had to tell them what's what. Here's what we're going to be doing. I need you to do this, you to do that. Here's an announcement, right? I need volunteers for this. Anybody got any questions? Stuff like this. If you've never done that kind of stuff before, it's pretty nerve-wracking. So learning some of the basis of that, also observing other people and what they do helps, having a bit of a model. Lima says, Bill, how to find first employer, how to reach out to them, build messages. Okay. Well, we're getting into sort of how to get a job, which is not really what this podcast. But that question, Limos, I've got a ton of videos. I've spoken about that a ton. Okay. Like I've got a lot of things. What you're asking about is called networking. Okay. You're trying to discover, people that would be interested in something. Now it's the same basic idea, whether you're looking for customers that would be interested in your product, or partners, or people that can assist you, or employers. It's the same idea. You go through the same method. It's called networking. Now, I did a live stream less than 2 weeks ago. I think it was 2 weeks ago or less, called networking. And I did a follow-up on that called informational interviews. You can see these on my website. Let's see if we can do this together. Okay, the company's expert. Let's go to the YouTube channel. I will show you where they are because I've given full and complete information on this. And we're getting some questions. Like this is the YouTube channel. If you go to live right here, okay? Okay, so here's the one on networking, and here's the one on informational interviews. Like I talked for an hour and a half and an hour just on this specifically, okay? And it's a bit more thought out than what I'm doing now. I'm just talking off the top of my head now, okay? And not only that, I mean, I've got a ton of videos about this, but what's more is that course here covers that in a very formal way, step by step with templates. So if that's what you're interested in, check out that course. There's a link in the description for both those courses. But the Get Hired one is where I talk about networking and how you can do some high-level networking and also like some of the constituent skills in it. So hopefully that makes sense. Anyway, I will be signing off in a couple of minutes because I got to get rolling, and I will be back in 20 minutes with my general Q&A where people ask questions about how to get a job and how to further their career and that kind of stuff. So thank you for joining me today for Side Hustle Ideas. I will be doing this on Mondays going forward. Not sure if I'll be here next week, but certainly after that, I should be back doing this every week. So thank you very much. You guys are all awesome. And I will see you soon. Take care.